Now this is a continuation of the problem that we started with Berry Computing. In the last video now we went through liquidity ratios. In this section now we're going to do activity ratios, sometimes referred to as turnover ratios. Now activity or turnover ratios, they measure how effectively the firm utilizes its resources. And the resources of a company are the assets on the balance sheet. Now, how effectively do you use your resources? Well, how effectively do you use your total assets? Well, that's a function of how much revenue you generate. You know, the reason we have assets is because we want to generate goods and services that somebody wants to buy. So in all these activity ratios now, you're going to see sales. The asset that you see now, that's what they're trying to get a look into. That's what we're looking at to see how effectively we're using that particular asset. Now the first ratio that we're going to look at now, the first activity ratio, this is called days sales outstanding, often referred to as average collection period. And it's defined as accounts receivables over sales times the number of days in a year. And they told us in this problem that they used 365. Now, again, I mentioned this in the lecture, I'll mention it one more time. The number of days in the year, what it should be is the number of days that you're open for business. This particular ratio now looks at your customers, you know, how well they pay off their bills to you, their accounts, which is your accounts receivables. And so, you know, you should understand that if you're not open, you can't get, your customers can't pay. So what this number should be, the number of days in the year, that really should be the number of days you're open for business. In this case, though, they tell us to use 365. And so accounts receivables off the balance sheet, $336,000. Sales off the top of the income statement now is $1,607,500. Do that division, multiply by 365, you find that Berry Computing has a day sales outstanding or average collection period of 76.29 days. And what that means is that your typical customer who comes into your business and charges something, puts something on credit, you don't see cash for those sales for 76.29 days. All things being equal, you like that number to be lower as opposed to higher. The industry average is 35. The way I would interpret this is to say that Berry Computing's ability to collect cash from sales to credit sales to customers is below that of the typical firm in the industry. Another activity ratio now is called inventory turnover. Again, a very well-known activity ratio. And it's defined as sales over inventory. If you look on the income statement, you'll find sales to be $1,607,500. And if you look on the balance sheet, you'll find inventory to be $241,500. Do the division, 6.66 is the inventory turnover for Berry Computing. The industry average is 6.7. I view those to be exactly the same. Berry Computing's ability to generate sales off its investment in inventory is in line with that of the typical firm in the industry. Another thing you should look at and consider when you look at an activity ratio like this is that for every dollar that Berry Computing has invested in inventory, it's generating $6.66 in sales. Clearly, you'd want your company to generate as many dollars in sales for every dollar you have invested in assets. So again, inventory turnover, you like this number to be higher as opposed to lower. Another common activity ratio, turnover ratio, is called total asset turnover. Now this is a very broad measure of activity, but very common. And it's defined as sales over total assets. Again, off the income statement, you'll find sales to be $1,607,500. You'll find on the balance sheet total assets $947,500. Do the division, Berry Computing has a total asset turnover of 1.70. They're generating $1.70 in sales for every dollar invested in total assets. The typical firm in the industry is generating $3 in sales for every dollar in total assets. You would interpret this by saying Berry Computing's ability to generate sales off its investment in total assets is below that of the typical firm in the industry. The culprit for this, probably credit sales. They have too much money tied up in accounts receivables. If they brought that number in line with the industry average, you would see these two numbers, especially this number here, go in line with that of the typical firm in the industry.